control system. A collection device is used to collect and return oil to the compressor when needed. Main components are oil separator, oil reservoir, oil regulator, and oil safety controls. Here's a diagram of the arrangement of oil control devices. You can look at this, probably better to see in your book. There's a pretty good sized picture of it, and it's easy to pick out the different devices. Oil separator removes oil from the refrigerant in the discharge line. Uses screens and baffles to filters and piping to arrange it to capture oil droplets. Again, you don't want your compressor just pumping oil. So this needs to be in larger system and commercial refrigeration usually. You don't see a lot of them in home refrigeration or home air conditioning. Oil collects at the bottom. Float valve allows oil to recirculate. Oil reservoirs, storage vessel for oil, often used in large systems and multiple compressors, often has one or more sight glass. Oil level regulator controls the level of oil in the compressor, uses a float mechanism, mounts a side of a compressor. Oil is applied from the oil reservoir. I have never seen one of these. They're probably on extremely large systems and chillers, but even on a few large items I've seen, this is not something very common. Oil safety controls. Shuts off power to the compressor if net oil pressure or oil level drops below normal for a preset time. Time delay accounts for startup values, prevents nuisance shutdowns. This you see mainly on commercial refrigeration systems, some commercial air conditioning systems. I've never seen one on a residential system, so if you're going to work in the residential industry, you won't probably ever run into this. But this is just something that determines whether there's enough oil to keep the system working properly. And also the better picture of this, so you can read the little marks, is on page 466, and that's in the Modern Refrigeration Air Conditioning 20th edition. And I mentioned that it's a 20th edition because starting this modular June of 2020, the school is going to the 21st edition for their new classes. Vibration absorbers. Flexible corrugated metal tubing with braided cover. Carries refrigerant, reduces vibration and physical motion. Installed in suction line and discharge lines, installed as close to the compressor as possible. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you've seen a lot of these. You don't see a lot of them anymore. Large commercial systems and large refrigeration systems, you do see these still on. When I started in the industry, there was home systems that had these. They did leak a lot. They did have problems, and I think that's why they stopped using them, because it would be much easier to install these rather than trying to bend copper in certain tight areas. So they don't use these anymore because they just do leak and do have problems. Large commercial systems that have a lot of vibration, they need to use them, but they're problematic. Caution about these: do not stretch, compress, or twist vibration absorbers when installing it. Avoid overheating the fittings when braided coverings during installation or brazing the ends. Excessive heat can loosen brazed connections inside the vibration absorber, resulting in premature failure. Crankcase heaters, used to keep crankcase warm during periods of low ambient temperature, prevents vapor refrigerant from condensing into liquid, prevents liquid slugging electrical heating element. I said a few things about this in our last chapter, chapter 18. It used to be every compressor that you'd go out to 20 years ago, 25 years ago, had one of these around it at the base, especially if you're in a cooler climate. Nowadays, they use power. This is something that is expensive to put in if you need to have a thermostat to turn it on only in cold weather or cool weather even. But the real problem is you have to think about this heat element going around the bottom of this compressor. And it's hard to see it in this picture on here, but it's that little silver ring around the bottom where the arrow's pointing at. On big units, yeah, you use them and they're worth the power. But on a home unit, this unit is going to be running all the time. It's using electricity to keep warm. It's like having a heater on all the time, even when it doesn't need to be used. Older home units, air conditioning systems didn't have a control on them, so they just ran constantly. There's multiple types. This is what's called the belly band, or a strap, sometimes they call them. But that's not what was used in later years. This is an old style. This is an aftermarket style. The ones that you saw mostly in the industry were about 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, and about 1 inch in diameter. And in the bottom of the compressor, there's a fitting that goes into the system. It's totally on the outside. It's not in the sealed system. It doesn't make its way into the inside system where there's oil and refrigerant. This is just a little tube that they built onto the compressor body, and this little round tube slid in there. Somewhere between the size of a half a roll of nickels and a half a roll of quarters. It slides in there. There's 2 wires on it. And I mentioned a little bit more about this because you're not going to see them a lot, but when you see them, sometimes they are problematic. Again, the wires on them, if your system's shorting out and you can't figure where the short is in the system, always check that, because again, this is not a copper device. This is a metal device, and constant rain outside will cause these to rust. Their wires will come off. So it's something you have to look at. But they were used way too much power. So to save power, and that's what everybody's doing now, because you have to to get a system approved by the building department. When you put a new system in and pull a permit, it has to be of a certain energy saving style, and this just uses way too much energy. Well, this was our last slide. I hope you enjoyed it. There's going to be a couple videos about a few of these points after this. Please watch them. This is a 3-part presentation, plus there's going to be some videos after. So take your time, go through them. This test and chapter is very short, so it's not a lot of information.